Hey guys, so you should be able to hear me. This is James, and today we're doing something very different. It is a live stream. I am currently sitting in my kitchen, and yeah, hopefully you'll be joining me here today. If not, you might be able to see this in replay. Anyhow, we're going to be working on restoring these leather pouches. I've got one here, one which I finished this morning, and one which I am currently finishing now, and I have 3 more in here as well. So we'll be working on that right now. Hopefully you can hear me. Again, this is the first time I'm doing a setup, so I don't know if the microphone up there is working properly. If you can, do let me know. I don't know if I can see the comments here. I really haven't used this before, so this is all experimentation for me. No, don't want to do that. Sorry guys, just setting up a few things before we get going. Okay. So yeah, as you may know or may not know if you've been following my channel, these are ammunition bags from the 1960s. They have been used a lot, as far as I can tell, but they were originally made for ammo packs, 2 ammo packs in each bag, and I find that they make brilliant little pouches or satchels, whatever you want to call them. So today it's going to be a bit boring at first because I have to sew this back up, and then we can work on the 3 that are in here. Which, yeah, these, as you can see, some of them are in really bad condition. Yeah, that's this is the worst one I've seen so far. It's from 1965. It was made in Flaville. I don't know how you pronounce that in Swiss or German or whatever. It was made by A. Allenspach, whoever that guy was. Don't know if you can see that very well. Focus. Well, anyhow, that is the worst off, but it's not the oldest, incidentally. That was 1967. This is the oldest, and this one was made in 1962. So this one is basically, yeah, 60 years old now, or very nearly 60 years old. And it was made by someone called G. Eggiman, and it was made in Weissachen or Weissachen, Wissachen. Not sure how you pronounce that properly in German. But yeah, it was made in 1962. Yes, I have actually got a pattern. It's up on my Etsy. So yeah, as you can see, I've been taking them apart, and I will be taking these apart as well. Actually, I might just start with one of these just to show you guys how my whole process. But I do have patterns for this on my Etsy that you can purchase if you want to make your own. I've got a few people who have made some and sent off the pictures to me, which are quite interesting to see. Bear in mind that the originals do not come with D-rings on either side, which I like to add. So if you look at this is one I've done, I like to add these little D-rings, and I find that this adds a lot of versatility in terms of function. You don't have to change anything to the design of the original bag, but yeah. Secondly, every single one of these bags is handmade in the 60s, so slightly different. The one I used for the pattern was in pretty good shape, so yeah, hopefully that was the best pattern I could get. So we'll start off with I think I'll do this one to start off with because I love the colors on this one, and I'll show you guys my process pretty much. But it's quite simple. It's quite fun, but very simple. But yeah, just to show you the difference. This is brand new, more or less, or redone. Basically, I change all the stitching to make it pop a bit more, just to clean it out. But most importantly, I go ahead and clean every single piece on these bags to make sure that they are as beautiful and pristine as possible. So, yeah, let's get started. Scalpel. Love these scalpels because you always get a clean, sharp blade. Very useful. Now, the fun part is, I don't know how long it's been since this has been opened. And it's in pretty good condition overall, I'd say. Pretty good condition. pretty neat on the inside. I don't know if I can show you that very well there. Yeah, more or less. The construction is very basic, as you can see. It's just a nice little box construction here, with the only tricky part being the edges, the angles on the edges here, because it's a 45-degree angle edge. I'll try and show you, I don't know how I can show you that better. There we go. With the stitching going across as a 45-degree. So here we go. This is the fun part. There is no right or wrong way of doing this. I like to take off the flap first, simply because it gets in my way otherwise a lot of the time. And to do that, I just simply go along the edge here with my scalpel very delicately. It's very easy to nick the leather, which I have done. And you can just feel it cut. You have to take it down here. Sorry guys, I hope you can see okay. This is the only awkward part. Here we go. So yeah, I like to take my time for this, because it's easy to go too fast and then you're stuck with a product that has been flawed or nicked basically, and that's really, really annoying when that happens. So yeah, just take your time. So yeah, the one I'm working on is made in 1967 by J. Jossie. There you go. At Adelboden. And yeah, they're really interesting little pieces. And I have to say, I've been enjoying finding them to start off with. That's always a challenge. And taking them apart and putting them back together. Now, if you're not staying too long, I'm going to tell you the process here quickly. I will use saddle soap to start off. Make sure I get them really nice and clean with saddle soap first. Then go ahead and use a tiny bit of alcohol just to rub off the excess, rub off anything that might have lingered on the piece. And finally, I will use, well, not finally, but then I'll use neat soap oil just to make sure that the piece is as supple as possible and fed with all the essential oils that it needs. And then finally, I'll use Saphir Renovateur cream, which also acts as a bit of a polish. I'm sorry guys if I don't see your comments, because the comments don't tend to stay too long on the screen, so if you've got a question, feel free to ask me a few times with intervals in between. I could try and get you guys a bit closer here. I'll just finish up this first. We'll see about the camera placement later. It's not the most important right now to me, unfortunately. Maybe for you guys, but not for me. Let me get this flat. Is that done? Can't see. Yes, there we go. And I think we are... Okay, so the flap is still tied on to the belt buckles here. Otherwise, all this has been cut off, but it's still tied with the belt buckles. So I'm just going to try and get in between here. I could just pull, but I prefer not if I can avoid just pulling. There we go, that one's off. Yep, have to be careful with the leather here. Now there are different types of scalpel blades. I've got a rounded one here, which may not be the, there you can see it nicely there. May not be the best for this. It's great at cutting through flesh. It sounds disgusting, but it's actually why I love to use it on leather, because it's a really good cutting blade, but it's not the most precise blade. And for this kind of work, I sometimes prefer using a straight blade instead of a rounded blade, because it gives me more precision. There we go. Top is off. Let's take care of this. Okay, I'm in. There we go. Okay, this one is coming nicely. Another good thing about scalpel blades is that they are very, very cheap. Now, I have some really, really gorgeous knives downstairs in my, well, on my bench, which I absolutely love, and there is an art to keeping a knife razor sharp. But one of the advantages of scalpels is that you don't really have to worry about them too much. And I am going to have to take out the stitchings later. So I'm trying to grab this one because it's a big one. Yeah, second fun part is getting out of all the stitches. I'm glad you guys can hear the pops. I've got a nice little microphone set up here so you can hear that, but I wasn't too sure. And yeah, the satchel, these little bags are really, really fun to work with. They work great as I mentioned, yeah, as hip bags, clutch bags. Mostly for now sold few for women, but you can of course use them on your hip, just on a belt. I haven't really seen them do that yet. Let me just grab some. Here we go. I have some needles here which I'm going to be using to unstitch. Yeah, this is the boring part, the unstitching, or getting the stitches out. I'm going to do that later. You know what, guys? I'll do that later. Let's finish up getting all the pieces taken apart. So here we go, that's the front part, well, that's the flap and closing mechanism. The closing mechanism on these is quite fun, it's very, very basic, but it's got one thing that I haven't been able to find anywhere else. It's got this quite substantial post screw, or whatever it's called, this closing button system. And one interesting thing, and I'll show you once we get this off the back, is that this is actually riveted in place, believe it or not. It's one big rivet. So I can see this on the inside here. It's one big rivet there. You can just about see it there. And I have not been able to find these anywhere else. So I don't touch these, basically. I do replace the rivet at the back, which is a very, very simple, small, round rivet. Here you can just see it there. I do replace that with a copper rivet because that's what I have downstairs, and it works out great. Actually, I can show you. This is a piece I'm working on right now. It's got a new copper rivet installed. That's one thing that I do change. Apart from that, all the hardware I try and keep original. So for example, the D-rings that are on each piece, I make sure that they stay with the same piece, and each D-ring goes back on as much as possible. Actually, not as much as possible. They go back on because every time I've been able to keep the same D-ring for each pouch. So as mentioned, the differences between one that has been done and the original is the stitching. All the stitching's been redone. I like to use a smaller thread that works really well here and also looks much more contrasty and really quite fabulous. 2, as I just mentioned, the rivet in the middle here gets changed, and 3, I do add these D-rings on the side to be able to make it turn it into a small satchel or small shoulder bag. Apart from that, every single thing on this is original. Well, I say that, but there isn't that much more apart from that. The leather pieces, of course, and the D-ring in the middle, which I will sometimes, like this one, for example, sand down a tiny bit just to try and get them looking a bit better, but yeah. And yeah, these, I have got some new pouches here. I've got 2 on the website right now, 2 on Etsy right now for sale. I'll have 2 coming up hopefully tomorrow. And then I've got 3 more here, which I have just received today. And I've also got the big brother of this coming on in the mail right now. And that's something I'll be showing you in another video, hopefully next week. It's basically a much bigger bag, and I mean a much bigger bag, about this big, which is much more versatile, which is again made by the Swiss Army. But these were made in the 1960s. The bag I'm expecting next at the end of this week was made in the 1970s, and there's a very, very different style, but still with some nice leather. And I found one which is in disastrous shape, which I'm hoping to be able to bring back. So let's get back to work. So once I've got the front flap done, I want to make sure I don't lose it, so I'll keep it, yeah, that's perfect. Now, what I like to do next is go around all the edges. There are several ways. You could try taking these off first, but I want to get the front and back off before doing anything else. So let's go ahead and pop these stitches. first few ones are always the scariest ones because you get the movement going. Ah, here we go. Yeah, I might have to bring you in closer for this because I really can't show you very well what's happening here. I'll try. Just trying to cut my thumb. And then the corners already always quite interesting. The way they did this was very basic, but because every saddler has his own tricks and his own habits, they sometimes vary. So I like to run my scalpel blade down into between the two pieces of leather. You see I'm cutting into it now more than I should be. I'm not using the right scalpel blade for this. Okay, that's scaring me too much. I'm going to go from the inside. If I can get to it from the inside. Don't know if you can see that. Yeah, just. Just running the blade gently across the threads until they pop. There's no point trying to force it. That's when you hit the leather more than the actual stitches. There we go. Okay. So yeah, that's typically what's going to happen. It's going to start unraveling or coming loose. And that way you can get back in. Aha! And you shouldn't need too much pressure. These are very old threads, very dry. So just running the blade gently along the thread should be enough to get it to pop. Sometimes it won't come, especially towards this area here, which can be very tight and often doubled down. And not everyone did this. That's interesting. I'll try and show you something a bit smaller if I can. What's interesting is to note that because of all these were made by hand by different saddlers throughout the years, some of these are double stitched here for strength, which is what I do for my own when I redo them. I always double stitch. Now they're always double stitched around here, but only some of them will be double stitched down here. And I really like that this guy, whoever this guy, J. Jossie was, he double stitched it. And that's always quite appreciated, I think. It adds a bit to the solidity. No, cutting too much. To be very gentle. Okay, we're guessing now. There we go. Okay, we're through. That's always quite scary. So, now that we've got this off, I can show you a few things which I thought was quite interesting. So yeah, you can see the rivet there, much more apparent than before. But with this lighting, you may or may not be able to see the way they did this. So, if you'll see here, the guy, when he stitched through, only used one piece of thread. And to do that, he backstitched a few and then came in back on top, which I thought was very clever. This is something you won't see at the bottom of your bag, so you really don't care if it doesn't look too good. And again, don't forget, these were made for functionality, mainly for use, and they didn't really care about the looks of the inside, at least. These were military pouches, so yeah. To go faster, just use one piece of thread. It may sound silly, said like that, but yeah, I enjoyed finding that out when I opened up my first one. So before we finish with this, and before we can actually put this to one side and start cleaning it up, we have to get rid of the threading on the sides here. So this is quite easy because it's a box stitched construction. You can see, you should be able to see the threads in there quite easily, and they're easy to take out. Just follow down the middle. Again, taking your time. And one last one, which I'm actually going to take out by hand instead of cutting it, because otherwise this one gets in the way later on in the process a lot. Oh no, I have to go this way. Well, I have to come back anyway and do all this. I don't have my awl with me, so I may have to go and find something to be able to prick these out, because otherwise this is going to become very tiresome very fast. Getting rid of all these individual stitches can take a long time. But it's necessary if you want to clean the bag out. So I know that there are people with tricks as how to do this fast. Especially shoe cobblers will have tricks about getting stitches out because they need it a lot. I know that Jeff Bedos from Bedos Leatherworks, great YouTube channel by the way, he once showed a trick about getting stitches out of welts. Welts is in the part of the shoe, and I should have written it down because now I can't find what he said, and I can't remember what it was, that trick that he mentioned. So, if you're planning to make these bags, again, as mentioned, I do have a template on my Etsy page if you want to go and pick that up. That really helps me out, and hopefully you can have fun making the bags for yourself. But most importantly, this is very specific leather. It's been, I believe, compressed or hardened in some way and makes it really tough. It's about 2.5 millimeters thick. But I would suggest getting 3 millimeters thick leather if you want to replicate this. And two things to note that will be very important. They skived down the edges or cut the edges all along here at a 45-degree angle, just to make it much easier to be able to stitch together in a box construction stitch method. That's number one. And number two, they'd added grooves at the different folding points. As you can see, they've cut grooves in where it's supposed to fold, and that will help a lot when constructing. No glue was used in the construction of this, which again just shows that the guys who did this knew exactly what they were doing, and these are insanely well built. Every single one I've had so far has been able to be brought back from whatever state it was in and is looking fabulous now. So I'm really impressed about the quality of the leather, the quality of the craftsmanship on these. And every time I rebuild one, again, I am impressed. I don't have the right scalpel for this. I would need something a bit finer to be able to get in there. So I'm going to go from the back and just be very careful at not marking that leather too much, because I'm sure I won't be able to do it without marking it at all. But I'll try and do my best just to open up some of these stitches, because once I've got a bit of leeway on the front, I should be able to get in there, but I do need to have access. As long as these stitches are down here, I can't really get there. That's the beauty of scalpels. This thread is so hard, and yet this scalpel just goes straight through. And yeah, I've got loads of extra blades, very easy to change, although you want to be careful when changing it because it's easy to cut yourself. And there we go. Yeah, the pattern does have a stitching line, although it's just a rough stitching line in the sense that I've marked down where the stitching should be. But the SPI varies from one maker to another. Now, there are certain things I can tell you that have been replicated in every single one of them. For example, here you will always have 3 holes. So basically on the actual piece. So 3 holes every time. One, so I don't know if you can see that. You always have 1, 2, 3 holes every time. Here the same, 3 holes, 3 holes, 3 holes, 3 holes. But because these pieces don't vary in size, that's easy enough to replicate. However, that brings something very interesting I've seen on some pieces where the SPI or the spacing here, the space per inch or something per inch, whatever, the spacing here, the guy making it had a much finer stitching line going on here, and when he got to here, sometimes he'd carry on with his very fine stitching, and you'd notice the very last one suddenly jumps a long way because he hasn't taken into account that the stitching size here to keep 3 holes every time changes. So yeah, sometimes you get some very interesting inconsistencies, but that's down to the actual saddler. I would say that these are about, on this one specifically, they're about 4 millimeters apart, I'd say. Yeah, I'd say about 4 millimeters apart. But these all saddle stitched by hand, so there is no specific SPI that I can share with you. I would say make sure you mark out where you want to finish your corners first of all. And yeah, there is a pattern on my Etsy page. I believe my Etsy page or Etsy shop should be linked. Where should it be linked? It should be linked in the description of my channel if you're interested in picking that up. But yeah, the SPI, unfortunately, I can't really help you. I've been using when I made one myself from scratch just once, I have to admit, just once. And I used my Crimson Hides irons, which are a 4 millimeter spacing, which means that every single stitch will be 4 millimeters apart. But they've clearly been using awls and stitching by hand, so there is no ultimate guide on stitching on this one. It's a bit of it's not the easiest build if you're not used to stitching things that are 3-dimensional, that is bags and stuff, and if you've never done stitching at a 45-degree angle on the sides here, for example, then this may not be the easiest build for you. But it's a really fun build and it's a fun result, and it's nice to have something that you know has history behind it. So now as I've cut through here, let's see if I can somehow manage to, without marking the leather, I'm going to have to go at it here on the sides. I don't know if you can see that. No, you can't see that. I really should have put my phone closer. Yeah, because I'm using my phone to record this live. I've got a nice mic plugged in, a light up there, but apart from that, using my phone. So the quality may not be the best. Oh, there we go. Got it. As you can see, it's coming loose. Will the phone? Does it want to focus? Come on, focus. Nah, doesn't want to focus. Okay, well, it's coming loose. So now as it's slightly loose, I should be able to pry it open slightly. Maybe? Oh, these are tough. These are tough little things. But it should be open just enough for me to be able to slide the blade down there. Without cutting the leather. There we go. I got it. Next one. Got it as well. So that's one stitch dealt with. Yeah, it's coming apart slowly. Guys, I'm sorry if you've been commenting on things. I only rarely see the comments because I'm not looking at my screen, and the comments tend to disappear. So if you have a question, feel free. Actually, can I see the comments here? Yeah, this is all new for me. Oh, okay. So there we go. I can keep all the messages. Okay. So yeah, Mark Foley, I'm glad that this information helps. Thanks a lot for the comment. And can I leave all? Why can't I leave all the messages? I wonder. Anyhow, doesn't matter. I'll figure out the ins and outs of live YouTubing later. Anyhow, let's see if I can get these last stitches. This one's being a pain. There we go. This one is tougher than the others. I think it's because I don't have the right scalpel blade. I did mention this, but I've got a rounded scalpel blade on this right now, which is great for cutting through leather, but for doing precision work like this, it's not the best. There we go. I really should be working flat. It's much easier. I was hoping to show you guys the process a bit closer, but unfortunately I'm not set up for that. Next time I'll make sure I'm setting up much closer to the table to make it easier for you guys to follow. But I am through and I can now start taking out these stitches, or these threads. So yeah, if you're still here, Mark, the PDF on my Etsy page will have all the information about where to skive, where to cut, obviously, where to stitch, or rough guides. As I mentioned, it's a rough stitching guide because, again, each one of these makers did it a bit differently. It will also have the information about where to have your grooves on the inside. If you've got a thicker leather, that's really important. And it's also got a step-by-step rebuild. One thing to note about the rebuild, and I'll show you on this piece, is that the order is very, very specific. You want to get these in first, the side buckles first, stitching bottom and top, but not the very top, just the third row. So 1, 2, 3 rows of stitching. You want to do this on both sides, and then you want to stitch on the top to the bottom, because the line of stitches goes all the way through the top stitch on each one of these belt buckles. Before that, if you want to add the D-rings, don't forget to add the D-rings or you'll be stuck and have to redo it. Only then can you come and add this piece here. Now this piece at first will only be riveted in place. So you want to, of course, stitch on the D-ring back onto here, but then you'll want to just rivet it in place. And once that's done, go ahead and do this if it hasn't been done already. Once that's done, you're nearly ready, actually you're nearly finished. You can go ahead and do the corners here on each side, and finally stitch the whole thing back together. Salut David, bah écoute, bonjour de France, bonjour de Paris plus spécifiquement. And I didn't get that last message. Emre, I didn't get that. If you want to send me an email, I believe my email again should be on the YouTube description. Yeah, it should be there. Should be there. But if you have a message for me or want to find out more, feel free to get in touch. I'd be delighted to discuss anything with you guys. I think one of the great joys about YouTube is to be able to share about leathercraft, and that's where I learned everything that I know, which isn't very much. I feel like it's, well, sometimes I feel like it's not too much. I've been doing this for the last 3 years, and to be honest, I follow a ton of people on YouTube who are still teaching me so many things every day, and I find that YouTube is a great community. So yeah, absolutely, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out either by chat now if you want, or by direct message, or even by email. My email should be down there somewhere. So they used a very interesting, very thick linen thread for this, which was heavily waxed. Now the wax does several things. First of all, it protects the thread from wear and tear and protects the thread from moisture, water, from use. It also makes it very, very strong. You may know that composite elements like carbon fibers, for example, on its own isn't very strong at all, but once you add it in with resin, it suddenly becomes incredibly strong. It's a bit the same for wax and linen thread. I wouldn't say you can really compare it to carbon fiber boards, for example, but it does work in a very interesting way that the linen thread on its own can be brittle, especially over time, but even slight coats of wax will take it a long, long way to protect it against things for a very, very long time. So yeah, trying to figure out what all this does. Merci beaucoup, David. C'est super gentil de me dire ça. Really glad to hear that you guys like my work. I've been doing this for 3 years, and yeah, for now, really just experimenting a lot. And whenever possible, I've been sharing templates on my Etsy, and just trying to share the little bits of knowledge that I can glean or find off YouTube and internet in general. Another great place actually is Reddit. I was very surprised to see how good Reddit was at providing help and information for those who needed it on leathercraft. They have a very nice leathercrafting community over there, and I would definitely recommend that to anyone starting off, or even anyone who's even pros really, who just want to discuss, share, help out, share their knowledge. I would recommend Reddit for that as well. So yeah, this is the very boring part of watching me unstitch stitches, which is not fascinating, and I apologize in advance for that. So if you do have any questions, feel free to ask them, and I'd be delighted to answer as best I can, at least. There we go. So nearly done one of the belt loops. Yes, this is a slow process. The process gets very fun and very rewarding as you go along, especially once you start cleaning it up. And I think I'm going to do things in a weird order here. I was hoping to do all 3 at once. What I usually do is unstitch them all, make sure they're in each got a separate compartment, just to make sure I keep everything together. I don't start mix matching pieces. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. And then once that's all been cut out, I like to clean it all up in one go, because it's a bit of a messy process. I use saddle soap for that. Oh wow, this guy had a knot here. Okay, I'll show you this afterwards. I think I can show you once I've got this off. But the guy has a hidden knot at the back of this. Ooh, you see, that was dangerous. I slipped there, and I could have. Well, I don't really mind cutting myself, because I'm not going to cut myself too badly with this, not in this position. But what I am more worried about is cutting the piece that I'm working on, which I do not want, because I can't easily hide a slipped cut. Okay, so I can show you now. There is a knot at the back of this one. The guy added a knot just, again, camera's not focusing, I apologize for that, but there is a big knot. Ah, there we go, now you can see it there. You can see the big knot there, and I was having trouble getting through that, and you can see it here as well, just here. Big knot. Yeah, I guess it doesn't really do anything where you knot it. There's no difference. It just, that's what you decide to do, really. Changes nothing structurally, whether you knot on the inside, in between the 2 pieces of leather, or on the back, except that in between the 2 pieces of leather, this helps to hide it, really. I guess that's the only real benefit, which is a big benefit. I can't really say that the inside stitching is very neat on these. Again, these were somewhat mass-produced. I'm not entirely sure how many they'd make, but I know that they made a lot, and you'd probably get the hang of it and get certain tricks to go faster as you go. This stitch is going to be... Oh no, okay, I thought it was going to be a pain to take out, but it's not. One issue about the waxed thread that I'm finding, and this is not an issue for the person who's making it, but an issue for the person who's repairing it, is when you want to pull it out, it sort of stays stuck to your pliers every time, and I have to physically take it off, which may not seem like much, but it just adds steps every time, you know, an extra step to the process. I could just leave it on, but it just gets in the way, and I can't really see what I'm doing very well. So I have to constantly be pulling it off. You see, this is really sticking to my pliers here. That's the only little downside of this. So yeah, if I have time today, I'll do things in an unorthodox order. I will go ahead and clean up some of these pouches before actually unstitching them all, which I would normally do. There we go, one last little stitch to come out. Okay, phew. Guys, with that being done, we have done one belt loop. There is all this to do, okay, all this to do, times 2 because it's on both sides. The stitching goes through on both sides. I am going to have to go downstairs, run downstairs and get them all at one point because that will help my unstitching process go much faster. But in the meantime, let's carry on getting this undone as much as possible. Okay, it's done. Get in between. Okay. Tough stuff. This one is dry, dry, dry. At least the stitching though. There we go. I think I've nicked the leather on this one. Yeah, I have. I've nicked the leather, guys. Not happy about that. Not happy at all. This one's being a pain. I really have to change my scalpel blade. This is not the right tool for the right job, and it's showing. It's bad, bad, bad workmanship on my part, that. There we go. And can I put it out? No, nearly. Okay, so this is just about done. Hey, there we go. Whew. That's been taken off, but yeah, I'm going to show you. I have nicked the leather on the inside here. I don't know if you can see that. Not very happy with myself about that, but I'll try and clean this up a bit just to show you. Luckily, it's in a place that will not be visible. But in general, I try and avoid that, obviously. I'll try and clean this up quickly so I can show you. I said quickly, but this is not a quick process. It's actually a very, very slow process. Some big piece comes out there. It's always very satisfying. That was where the guy had knotted it, I guess. I think I might spend about a day and a half working on one satchel, one of these ammo bags. It's quite fun. Not necessarily the most valuable way of spending my time, but hey, this is fun. Okay, I've now cleaned this up for you guys so I can show you where I nicked the leather. Come on. Just a few more to go. This does not want to come, this one. There we go. As I say that, it comes like it. Not to be taken out of context, dirty minds. Yeah, unfortunately, watching me do this is probably as interesting as watching paint dry. But hey, I thought I might as well do something while I'm doing this. I'm going to be sitting here anyway doing this, so I might as well stream it, and if I can answer a few questions and chat to a few guys while I'm at it, keeps me busy. Don't know about you guys. And I'd probably be bored watching myself do this. I get bored already when I'm doing it. Although, to be fair, I quite enjoy it. I guess I enjoy the boredom. Okay, I think we're all set here. That looks clean. Yep, I definitely nicked the leather on this one. Yeah, you can see it there. I nicked it just there. Well, these things happen, and it will be in a place that will be hidden anyway, so I'm not too worried. But in general, I like to be very critical on myself about this kind of thing, because if I'm not, that's when I get lazy and slip-ups happen. So even for the slightest thing at this stage, I tend to be very critical. Because I do tend to get lazy, and if I'm not critical, I don't pay attention to what I'm doing, and I don't look out enough. I guess as simple as that. And I do make mistakes. The problem is when you're working with a piece like this, you can't just go and grab a new piece of leather and start again. This has to stay intact, otherwise there is no point. The whole idea of this is that you have the original piece as it was intended, basically. Every single piece of leather still there and still working. And so far, I've been able to bring them all back, which I've really enjoyed. Well, I've got one here which is in really bad shape. And that one will be a challenge and a half to bring back. Okay, my stitches are all clean on this side. Let's do the top part and get this belt loop off completely. If you stick around long enough, you'll actually get to see me drill through the rivet here to try and take it off. Yep. I usually go for Dremel and use basically a sanding bit to take this off, but I don't have my Dremel right now with me. I do have a drill. I do have high-speed steel drill bits. So that's what we'll be using. Looking forward to that. I can see how easy it is compared to the Dremel. I can test it out, which should be fun. Because I usually go for the Dremel. I've always gone for the Dremel, so aha! So he's got a knot in this one too. Okay. Yay, there we go. Good, that was easier than planned. See any comments that I may have missed? It doesn't want to show. Yeah, okay, well, I don't know. Don't know how to get those. I'll have to read up on how YouTube Live works later. Yeah, as I mentioned, guys, I thought I might as well stream this while I'm doing it, because it's a slow process for me, and I thought I might as well be discussing about leather craft with you guys if you have any questions. So feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions right now. I'm more than happy to tell you what I know. You don't need to torture me, I will speak. In the meantime, we can carry on doing all this. There you go, this one is now free. Now, I've always wondered whether to mark these left or right, and to be honest, I probably should. But because these were all made by hand, and because every single piece is used and worn in a different way, you can generally find where to put them back just by comparing stitching holes one to the other. And that tends to work out quite well. For example, that would indeed go there. I think it would. It looks like it's correct, yeah. So you just place it on the piece and check where the stitching seems to line up. Check with the other side. Yeah, for example, this one is quite obvious. This one is quite obvious that it does not line up. As you can see, there is a gap between the... I'll just move it to one side slightly. There is a gap here that shows you where it just a very slight gap at the bottom that shows you it does not line up. So I know that it's probably the wrong way around, and when I put it the other way around, lines up beautifully. So I know that one goes there. So what I'll do, I could, but I haven't been doing it, but I could be writing a small R here on this one to say that it's the right one and the other one left. But to be honest, as I mentioned, you can generally find quite easily which one goes where, so I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to bother with that right now. So this is good, this is done. I'll put it to one side. And now comes the painstaking process of removing all the stitching. It's fun in a way when you get it in a roll, when you get rolling, but otherwise it can be just very, very slow and damn boring, especially because you're paying a lot of attention to the material, trying not to dent the leather. I think I'll do this later, guys, off camera, with the specific tools that I need to do it properly off camera. I'm just going to finish up this while I'm here, and then I can start stitching back up the other piece. Lots of thread here. Doesn't want to be caught. This is the issue sometimes with these pliers, is that you don't really have much precision in ways of grabbing threads and getting them out. There we go. It's coming nicely. As I mentioned, this is waxed linen thread. It does get caught in the pliers very, very easily, which means you have to add the step of actually physically removing it every time. It's really annoying. Okay. This one I have to go at it with a needle. There we go. There's something in here. Doesn't want to come. You can see it on the inside as well. It's just there. Push it through. No, can't push it through. Go and try and grab it with the needle and pull it, which is not the easiest. I do like to work from the inside of the piece, because if anything happens, it shouldn't be visible on the outside anyway. There we go. Okay, got. So I'm not too worried about working from the inside. Okay, that is nearly clean. One tiny little piece left. Okay, so what do? Do I go ahead and do all the stitching now? Guys, I'm going to leave you for a minute. I'm going to run downstairs, grab the tools I need to do this, and I'll be back in just a few minutes. So don't move, or go and grab a coffee or whatever, and I'll be back in a minute. Okay guys, I'm back. I have brought the all I need as well as some different scalpel blades. So, get back into position, get the show back on the road, as we say. Salut Robin, salut Alexandre. Okay, so first of all, let's get rid of this scalpel blade. That's how easy it is to take off. Bin. Keep one extra one always spare at hand. There we go. And here's the new one. Now, always be very careful with scalpel blades. They are very sharp. As I mentioned, I had a round blade on this previously, but that just wasn't doing it for me. It just wasn't precise enough. This, as you can see, is pretty lethal. Yeah. The blade is on the this part here, down here, which means that you get something really, really nice and straight that you can poke in the corners. Gorgeous little tool. Costs nothing, more or less, for the amount of use that I get out of it. And you've got tons of different blades that you can put on it, so depending on the job you need it for. So, this is my favourite tool right now, for this job at least. I really don't like it. It's a cheap Amazon stuff. But it works really well at pricking out these stitches, as you can see. There is no secret to this apart from take your time and just don't worry. Whatever happens, happens, and you can always fix it in post or not. Qu'est-ce qu'il raconte le Robin là? Je vois pas les messages du chat. Tu veux un rangement pour ta machette? Ah, ça peut se négocier. Ça peut se négocier. Je vais voir ce qu'on peut faire, Robin. T'inquiète. On se tient au jus. Now, the idea is that with this, you should be able to grab them all quite easily. And it is much faster than using the pliers. Because, I don't know if you can see this, but the stitching is actually quite far inside the leather and it's hard to get to. And yeah, you do have to take these out one by one. Depending on the direction of the stitch, you'll find that it's easier to go in a counter direction to get them. As you can see, there we go, got it now. You have to find the knack, get the knack going, and you can go quite fast once you've got it. It does work well. Yeah, there you go, good, okay. So it shouldn't take too long. And again, working on the inside of the bag is not a big issue. It's when you're working on the outside you want to be especially careful not to nick the leather. Well, we've been online for an hour now, and so far my first experiment into live streaming on YouTube has been quite enjoyable. More fun than being alone working on this, whatever the case may be. Yeah, as always, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. I try and read the chat. I don't know why it doesn't want to show me the messages. Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. I'll be delighted to answer you guys, if I can, at least if I have the answer for you. As a reminder, these are leather ammunition pouches from the 1960s. I'm currently working on one that was made in 1967 by a guy called Josie, and he made it in a town or a place called Adelboden. Adelboden? Not too sure how to pronounce that. And these were Swiss military ammunition pouches, and you can pick them up second-hand quite easily depending where you are in the world. I know in France you get quite a few that trickle into civilian use after 60-something, 50-something years, if not 60 years for some. You can find them in various states of disrepair and maintenance, but that's the whole fun of this process, is finding really old ones and taking them apart and putting them back together. Let's poke this one through. There we go. That's the top part done. I think the next part is actually going to be taking this off. So I'm just going to get the stitches out from the bottom here, and then we can grab the drill and start having some real fun. Not that this has not been fun, just different type of fun. That's not wanting to come. There we go. So yeah, if you want to see me try and get a rivet out with the drill, just hang along for a few seconds more. This doesn't want to come either. Okay. That was a good satisfying noise. Yep. Need 2 more left. 1 more. Done. So, let's clear things up a bit just to have a proper work surface. Oh, sorry. I have an alarm set up. 4 o'clock. Because you have stuff to get done more after this. Now, this is the fun part of leathercraft. Well, actually, there are loads of fun parts, but this is a fun part for me right now. Make sure you're working on a piece of wood or something that can absorb any slips if you make any. I'm going to work on this piece of wood here, chopping board, and we're going to go at it from this angle because that way we can just try and hit that little piece of whatever it is. Okay, there's a notch there. Now bear in mind this can warm up the piece. I've actually had a leather piece start smoking because I'd warmed up the rivet too much by this process. So just take your time. Be aware of what can happen if you go too fast. I think that's the main lesson here. It's one thing to experiment, but you have to take your time and learn from your mistakes if you make any, which in my case, they've been plentiful. I've also been able to learn a lot, so. Oh, there we go. Straight off. Perfect. That's one side. As you can see, that comes off, and the rivet comes out. Well, that was easier than planned. Did not expect it to be as simple as that. Okay, let's get this through. And we can put that away. Put this back in. Just don't move it. Now, we've got the rivets out of the way, let's try opening this up and getting the D-ring out as well. With my brand new scalpel blade. Go straight through, really pleased with the switch here. Much easier, wow. That's just insane. Okay, and again, the maker has hidden the knot on the inside here. Again, just gently rub the blade against the thread. There's no point trying to go too fast. There's no point forcing it too much. Make sure you're not cutting the leather, that's the most important part. And I think we're nearly there. Oh wow, this is caked in. The D-ring has oxidized all over the inside here. But we should be just about through any second now. There we go. Now, I'm not going to touch this, I'm just going to show you, because it's quite disgusting. Come on, focus. Why was it focus? I don't know. Anyhow, you can see that. That's, yeah. It's basically oxidization and bits of thread all mixed up together. A bit disgusting really, but doesn't really do anything. Just don't want to inhale it. In theory, I should be wearing gloves, but I don't do this enough that wearing stuff on my hands will, or that having stuff on my hands will do anything to me. But yeah, if you're doing this on a regular basis, you want to be wearing protective gloves, that's definite. I am for safety before anything else. That is my motto. If you're not doing it safely, you're not doing it at all. Well, you shouldn't be doing it at all. That being said, I'm not really doing it very safely, but hey, I don't do it enough to be necessarily very cautious. Use this, pull that out because that's a big chunk. I should be able to access the rest quite easily from the outside. Now, again, this is when you can start marking the leather, so this is when you want to be extra careful about what you're doing. And I think there's a knot here that's preventing me from pulling it from the outside. Let's see what this is. I don't know what that was. Sometimes the linen thread can get nice, really stuck in there and does not want to come out. And sometimes, as you saw previously, it just pops right out. I've seen a discussion on forums actually at one point about the type of linen thread that was used by the Swiss Army in the 1960s. Wow, have I really become someone who will read about linen thread used by the Swiss Army in the 1960s? 18-year-old me would be so ashamed right now. Anyhow, I love this stuff now, so hey, deal with it. This is my thing now. Yes, so there was a forum post about the type of linen thread used by the Swiss Army in the 1960s that was discussing just where to find such thread, or by what methods, or by what other threads you could replace it with. And the common consensus was that you just don't find any these days that had the same consistency. Let me give you the whole backstory here. The threads used here were actually surprisingly consistent for the period, for the time period. And to get something, and if you're going to be fixing something accurately, you would preferably get the same thread, if not a similar thread, to the one used back then. Now, the whole issue of this discussion, or the reason why this discussion came to be, was that one person was looking at similar threads of the time, because he wasn't able to find the same thread, so he was looking at similar threads that were still available, and he was disappointed by the lack of regularity in the thread. And so if you stumble upon, with any luck, some old thread used in the Swiss Army, cherish it, because apparently it is some really good stuff. That's about as much as I can say on that subject, which is already probably too much. Sometimes getting into these things gets me very, very, not stressed out, but my fingers feel like, I need to concentrate on the teeny tiny things. Can be a bit stressful for me, I don't know why. This does not want to come. Anyway, this will be hidden, so it's not a big deal if I can't get it all out. I'd like to, though. No, I'm just going to leave it now. I think I've got most of it anyway. Yeah, okay, so that's done. So all those little pieces are done. All I'm left with now to do is the bigger pieces, and this is where the challenge of picking all this out becomes much more interesting, let's put it like that. I'm going to bring you guys closer to me, because the camera is actually quite a bit too far away, so it's going to get very shaky, guys, but it should get much better very fast. Here we go. That's 1 foot out of 3. I'm just doing the second one quickly, and we should be good to go. So I want to get you up on the tabletop with me so you can see exactly what I'm doing, because right now you're a bit too far. Don't mind the shakiness. Don't mind me. There we go. Yeah. Let's angle you down a bit. It's weird to talk to you like this. There. That's better. So you can see what I'm doing a bit more. That's much better. Okay. Just going to move the microphone. Again, might get a bit noisy. There we go. So you should have me right close to the microphone, so it should actually be quite nice, hopefully. Okay, we're all set. So let's start undoing all these stitches. As I mentioned previously, there is a knack to be found on all of these. Once you've got the knack, you can go quite fast. You have to go against the stitch line. There we go. Much, much, much better. Hopefully my heavy breathing is not getting in your way. hindering your appreciation of this. There we go. So yeah, this is going quite fast now. If you just joined me, guys, once again, these are small leather ammunition pouches from the Swiss Army, handmade by their master saddlers, or maître sellier, to be more precise. In the 1960s, this specific one was made by J. Jossi in 1967. And the whole idea here is to take them apart, clean them up, and get them ready for action once more. But no, actually, I do not condone violence at all, and I don't like the idea of war at all. And I do like the idea that these, although being made for military purposes, can be reused as clutch bags and really nice shoulder bags for women, or for men if you like these, just by adding 2 D-rings and a strap. So I really enjoy remodeling these in a way. And you can find a PDF on my Etsy page if you're looking to make your own, where I've got all the detailed instructions, the PDF template, sorry, not being very precise, but I've got all the detailed instructions about how to make your own, following a pattern that I made by, basically it's a template made directly from one of these leather pouches, actually. The specific one I used for the template was sold last week to someone in New Zealand. I actually had to send something that far before. There we go. Oh, there we go. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing okay. And you're not hindered by anything in terms of view. I might work down here, easier, I think, maybe. We'll see. Yeah. You see, I'm going too fast, and I scratched the leather very slightly. The problem is, this is vegetable tanned leather, and vegetable tanned leather tends to mark very quickly. So you have to be careful when you're applying pressure with your tool on the stitch that you're not applying pressure on the leather, because otherwise you will leave a mark on there, and that's no fun for anyone. It's getting tough. There we go. 2 more to go, and we're done with the back piece. There, done. Back plate, or the back piece is completely free of anything. This one is in really good condition, to be honest. I don't really think it needs much to be done. I will give it the same treatment that I give all of them, because it is maybe a bit dry. Yeah, even then, it's in really good condition. It really is. But I'll do what I do with all of them, which is to say I'll clean them up with saddle soap. Yeah, that's it, saddle soap. Then I will add a bit of, I will use some alcohol just to wipe off, just very, very little bit of alcohol, just to wipe off the top layers of any dirt or anything that may have been left on. Then I'll go ahead and use some needle oil to give it back some of its suppleness, although again, this one is in really good condition. And finally, I'll be using Saphir Renovateur to give it the final touch-up and to bring it back to life completely. So that's done. we can do this one now. Yep, we can do this. Can't seem to get this one. This isn't even a stitch, it's just a piece of leftover thread and in between two cuts I made. There we go, it's out. This one is not coming at all. Let's try pushing it out from the other side. Hey, that's better. There we go, and clean. Yeah, this is a bit dry actually. So yeah, this will need tending to. It's not too bad. It's surprisingly, I mean all of these are generally in surprisingly good condition. I guess that the Swiss Army used some kind of really good conditioner on these, because the leathers so far, although old and worn and tired, have all been in very good shape and have all come back beautifully. I mentioned this in the video where I actually made my first two reconversions, but if you know anyone who used to be a saddler in the Swiss Army, then I would love to be able to discuss, talk with those guys, because it looks like it might have been a fascinating job to have if you like leatherwork. And I know that the Swiss Army have an obligatory military service. I'm guessing they've had that always, from what I can understand. So if you know someone who's been in that position, please get me a contact, and I would be very, very grateful. In the meantime, let's carry on doing this. Taking my time because it's easy to gouge leather, which I'm worried about every time I put the awl in there. Just push these out from the outside because it's the same as the other side. And we're just about done for this piece. There we go. Done. All clean. Well, not clean yet, but soon it is clean of stitches. I'll angle this down so that you can hear all the tiny details. Yeah, this thread gets very sticky and does stick to my pliers more than I'd like. Now, usually I tend to hit a knot on these corners because they seem to be knotted in a very odd way here. No, that one is okay. Maybe here. Maybe this is the one where I was able to get the knot out. But usually I've always had one corner where I've had to struggle a bit more than the others. Yeah, that's a bit harder than... Yeah, nice. Okay, that was easy enough. Good. Maybe I cut through that one earlier. Can I grab this? There we go. Okay. Guys, we're actually nearly finished on this one. At least the unstitching process. And after this, I have two options. We can either continue on this piece and clean it up with saddle soap, and go ahead and move on with this, or I have one other piece which needs stitching up, which I've just about finished, which just needs a final stitch up. So you guys let me know in the chat what you'd like to see next, if you want me to continue with this piece or move on to a different piece once I've finished this. And I realise once again that this may not be the most interesting thing for you guys to spend your time watching. Watching me pick these stitches is probably as interesting as watching paint dry. Actually, no, probably not. I think watching paint dry would be much more fascinating than watching me do this. Although I've watched paint dry and that's not very interesting. So, I don't know. I'm just rambling because I have nothing else to say really at this point. Yeah, sometimes leatherwork can be very repetitive and very boring to watch. I have to say, there is a very distinct pleasure in working with this kind of material. It's one of those things where, unless you've actually done it, you can't really appreciate it, I don't think. Get a feel for good leather. It's like a lot of things in life, really. As long as you don't do it yourself, watching someone else do it doesn't really compare. It doesn't compare at all. I mean, obviously, there's lots of things I wouldn't want to do, and I'm quite happy watching someone else do it. And to be fair, I do like watching people play video games at a much higher level than I will ever be able to play. Just like people are watching football games, which are, you know, basically the same thing. Players playing at a much higher level than they'll ever be able to play. And I have to say that I didn't know I'd enjoy leatherwork as much as I do when I started it. It would just be a hobby that I'd be doing on my time off, and it's become a bit more than that. And I still don't know where it's going to lead me, to be honest. If it's going to become a full-time thing or not. So far it's just had to stay on the sidelines. Simple hobby. He seems to have... This corner was... I don't know if you can see that, but the stitching on this corner is very, very close to the edge. And the guy who made this, I don't know what this would translate to as in I would say he might have been either he's working this way into the leather, right-handed into the leather, or left-handed from here. The reason I say that is because this distance, the distance here is basically the same as the distance on this side. But on this side, the distance is much closer to the side than here. So I don't know, does that mean anything? I don't know. Hey, thanks for joining me from Ukraine. Great to have you here. Hopefully you enjoy. As I've said previously, if you have any questions for me, feel free to ask them, and I'll do my best to answer. I know this may not be the most fascinating thing to watch, but at least we can discuss, talk, and if we can learn a few things along the way, then this would have been worth my time. It's the first time I've live streamed making or repairing a leather product. And the idea was basically I like to listen to myself talk, and no, the basic idea was that if I can give you guys something interesting to watch while I'm doing something else I like to do, then why not live stream? I'm here anyways. I've got the internet connection, and I've got the tools I need to be able to do it, so it doesn't take me too long to set up. If it means I can talk to some of you lovely people, then, well, that's made my day much more interesting. As a reminder, this is a pouch from 1967, made by someone called Jossie, sorry. You can see it there. I don't know, is that running around for you guys, or is that just running around for me? I don't know if the screen is flipping it around or what. But this is an old military pouch, and I have just now finished taking it to pieces. And taking all the stitching out, of course, and it's made a bloody right mess. Let's move all this to the one side. I'll clear it up later before the girlfriend gets back, hopefully, or else I'm not going to be able to do this much longer. And let's go ahead and grab some water for the saddle soap. Yes, next part of this process is going to be cleaning it. So I don't know if I'll be back in about 20 seconds, if not less than that. Actually, not even 20 seconds, guys. I'm actually going to be back right now, because I have a jug of water. Obviously, I will never need that much water. Oh, dear. This does not want to open. Ooh, yummy. Oops, still a bit wet. I'll just let that dry next time. Now, what I like to do is just, because you really don't need much water, just a few drops of water in there. Put this somewhere where I won't spill this. Get yourself a brush. It's a bit damp. Guess it's roughing. There we go. And basically just apply. Now I like to make sure I get it in the corners nicely, because that's where all the dirt will be accumulated. But I just make sure that every single surface is covered. I love the smell of this. I can't describe the smell. It's like a very neutral soap. I believe it's got extra oils in it. I've heard read mentions of this being great to get oils back into the leather. But to be honest, what I do know its main action is to detach top layers or whatever might be on the leather. And again, I would normally wear gloves for this process, and I would recommend wearing gloves for this because you don't want any long-term exposure, but since I'm not doing much today, I'm not going to worry too much about that. Damn, I forgot to take out the stitching on that one. It's going very, very quickly here. Be careful on this one. Now it's slippery too. This is not good. I don't want to make a mistake. If I make a mistake here, that will be visible on the final piece, and that's scary. There's always something, guys. There's always something that you have forgotten. But this should be out quickly, and we can go back to cleaning it. Okay, it's not too bad. You can see the saddle soap's being absorbed into the leather really quickly, and that's because the leather is very dry on this piece. I'll just give this another brush. And once that's done, I'm just going to put it to one side, let it dry out a bit first, and then we'll go ahead and rub it down with a tiny bit of alcohol, just to clean off the excess and to take away any top lying bits and pieces. Make sure you get into those stamp marks really nicely, because there will be dust and stuff in the stamp mark grooves, and you want to take them out as much as possible to make sure that you're getting the best possible contrast on the stamp marks in order to be able to see them better on the final piece. Now this piece is actually relatively clean. Sometimes when you go at it, the saddle soap gets very dirty very fast, so you can see that it changes colour. But on this piece, it's actually not too bad. Do the inside as well, always. Especially the bottom part, because that's where the dust falls at the bottom of your bag and accumulates. So people generally say small round circles are the best. I agree, because that's how the hairs get into the fibres, or little crevices I should say, the hairs of your brush. But don't worry too much about it if it's not very equal. It's just a question of rubbing it all in and getting as much rubbed out as possible. You can actually see it is a bit dirty. My hand is not necessarily the cleanest now that I've done that, which is why I do normally recommend using a glove, plastic glove or some kind of protective garment on your hand, basically, just to protect you against anything that might be there. And yeah, I'm not sure having the soap directly on your hand is a good thing over a period of a long time if you're doing this on a regular basis, but as I'm not doing this very often, I'm not too worried about it. It is soap, and to be honest, if it's made to go onto leather and not hurt the leather, I don't see how it can harm your hand, simply because leather is basically skin and your hand is skin too, so if it doesn't hurt leather, I go on the basis that it won't hurt you. So most things in leathercraft are quite harmless, although some of them have solvents in that you want to be careful about, and yeah, most of the time they're okay. So this will have, the main point of saddle soap in this process here is just to clean out the leather. But as mentioned before, I have heard or read people who were talking about saddle soap also being good to add in some of the oils back into the leather. Now, I've never been able to really confirm what's in saddle soap for some reason. I seem to be having a hard time finding the formulas of the different makers. But overall, I would have to say I do agree with the idea that saddle soap, not only does it clean the leather, it also adds in some form of suppleness. It does help the leather, it does clearly moisten the leather a bit. That's that's certain. We are adding water, so it's not going to be, it's not going to be as dry as before. But I would always recommend using needle oil as well, just to make sure that your leather piece is getting the proper nourishment that it needs. And this was the very disgusting inside. I don't know if you were here for that, but the D-ring had oxidized on the inside of this little D-ring holder, basically. And it had left a disgusting gunk. It's already looking much, much better just by rubbing it with the brush. And this final cleaning process should be all it needs to bring it back to life. Yeah, I really like the colour on this leather. It's a gorgeous russet gold tan colour, which just looks fabulous, to be honest. And there's an interesting 35F on that, which I don't know if that's supposed to be 35 Swiss francs or something, but it was clearly written by hand on top, and the person who did it, if you can see that, it's 35, yeah, you can see it. The person who did that clearly didn't realise that he was going to be leaving a big mark in the leather, but again, it adds to the charm of this piece. It just shows that old pieces have history, really. Now this is where you really want to go at it, simply because it's the part that has been under the most stress, apart from the cap, obviously, the flap. But this part would have been under a lot of stress over the years, simply because it's been bent. And secondly, because it's the inside of your bag. This is where all the dust and little bits and pieces would have been falling and accumulating. So make sure you get this really, really clean before you start doing anything else. Once I finish this process, all I do is rinse down the lid and the hairbrush, let my soap dry, because it is just soap, so you can let it dry and then close up again. So it's quite easy to do. Now saddle soap you can actually use on a lot of different types of leathers. Just be warned, it can cause discoloration, but that's mainly due to the moisture that you'll be adding. So if you're planning on using saddle soap to a piece, make sure you test it first on a place you can't see. Test it, let it dry, come back a day or two afterwards to see what it's done to the piece, and if it works for you, then go for it. But in general, with leather, always be careful, because you never really know how the leather is going to react to whatever you're using. You can guess most of the time from experience, yeah, you can guess, but I've had two items made from the same leather hide, or the same leather piece of skin, come out very differently. So yeah, just be warned when dealing with leather. You never really know what to expect. And this is also why I think I enjoy this process so much, is that once they've all been nourished again, every single piece is so different to the others that it really makes it very enjoyable. Okay, there we go. Messy process is done. Let it dry, and yeah, we'll come back. I'm just going to clear up a bit, guys. While I'm clearing up, this will dry up a bit, and we can use then alcohol and a piece of cloth to wipe it all down and start applying some more needlewood oil to it. So yeah, don't move. I'll just be 30 seconds to wipe this down. So I've got paper towel, and I'll use this first to get rid of most of the excess. Just gets rid of a good chunk of it. You can already see some of the dirt coming off. Don't hesitate to rub it quite thoroughly. It's survived 60 years, it's going to survive you rubbing it. This also helps take off some of the dirt, which, as you can see, is quite consequential. Let it dry for a bit more. Yummy. On the inside as well. This one's still quite wet. Yeah, look at that. That's quite something. Hey, so South 7-Eleven, if you're still here, I find these pouches online. You can stumble upon them on eBay and stuff like that. I'm going to reveal my secrets here, but I use Vinted a lot, and a French website called Le Bon Coin, which is a second-hand website. And you have to know what to look for, because most people don't really know what these are. And so they might name them very differently from one person to another. So I actually have a list of searches or search names that I'll be looking for. You can pick them up for quite cheap if you're lucky, but generally, yeah, to keep an eye out. They're not that easy to find. I'm lucky that I live in France, and therefore you do get quite a lot that seem to trickle down into France over time, because these were made in Switzerland. But overall, I wouldn't really know where to find them otherwise, apart from saying online secondhand. I don't think I've ever seen anything in surpluses, like military surpluses, that resemble this. Bear in mind that the Swiss tend to let their guys go home with all their equipment, and that's more or less one of the main attractions of the Swiss Army, is that you get to go home with your gun once you've finished your 2 years mandatory training. Was it 1 year? I think it's 2 years military service. I'm not sure, I may be wrong on this. But I have been told that one of the big bonuses of military service in Switzerland is that you get to go home with your gun. And that is why one of the things Switzerland seems to be very proud of is that all of their, at least the men, I'm not sure about the women, but at least all the men in Switzerland know how to fight, theoretically, and have a gun. So, I mean, not that you'd want to invade Switzerland anyway, but it's just a way of telling the world, hey guys, if you do want to invade us, good luck. We're full of hills, full of mountains, full of small villages, and every single one is armed to the teeth. So yeah, please invade us, and we'll take all your gold. No, but that's a different story. No, generally, I would say that if you want to find these, your best bet is looking on second-hand websites like eBay. You can find a fair few on eBay. I would also recommend my Etsy shop, where you can buy them fully restored and as good as new. But I feel like too much like self-promotion there. So I have a piece of cloth. Oh, it's nice and old kitchen towel actually as well. I want to cut it into 2 pieces. I don't need this much. Just cut a 4th out of it. There we go. And I can grab alcohol. So this is just random household alcohol. It stinks, by the way. Why used I think it stinks? It smells like, to be honest, it smells like bad rum. That's what it smells like. Rum can, it's a bit fruity, which is what makes me think of rum. It's basically a combustion type of alcohol. It's not very good for leather, but that's not why we're using it. We're using it, and for this you really would want to be wearing gloves. We're using it to get rid of the extra surface grime that may still be on here. You don't want to put too much on your leather because this is seriously going to dry out the leather. But it's going to be great at getting rid of saddle soap and cleaning up your leather, as you can see. That's why I use it. There we go, but it will dry out your leather, so you don't want to use too much on it, just enough to be able to rub off the extras. Just clean it up basically, but no more. Bear in mind I will be adding not saddle soap, but I will be adding neatwood oil after this. Barry 1379, hi James, can you still burnish 50-year-old leather if you recondition? Oh, why won't it leave the messages? You recondition it, is it malleable like a newer veg tan? You can burnish it. It works. I haven't really tried to burnish it too far because most of the time you don't need to on this kind of thing. It's all just been burnished by time. You can actually burnish it. I don't know about how malleable it is. I'd say you can get it back to very malleable, I'd say. So my guess is once you've added in all the oils again, it's pretty much ready to go again, good as new, more or less, in terms of leather. I mean, that's the beauty of leather, is that it's one of those materials that if you take care of it, it just lasts forever. And as you can see, yeah, it's pretty malleable. This is quite a hard piece. This is a very hard piece. But it doesn't seem to be overly stressed about being played around with. Do bear in mind this has not been nourished yet. This is just cleaned. So it's had saddle soap, and right now I'm cleaning it with alcohol. So yeah, bear in mind it's not been properly nourished yet. So once you get it nourished again, it does become, I'll show you. This is a piece that's been nourished, which is actually much, much harder than, and it's a bit different leather too. And I'll show you on this one. When you do that, you can actually see the discoloration from the oils that are moving around inside the leather. You can see that. So yeah, you can definitely use these again, but depending on the type of leather that you have, the final outcome is going to be very different. For example, I think that these leathers have been very heavily oiled. They were for use as cartridge holders. So my guess is the army didn't really care about having something that was perfect. They just wanted something rugged that would last, and that's the result that they've got. It's something that's definitely rugged and that has lasted 60 years. So I think they've managed to do exactly what they set out to do. So I'd say it all depends on the leather. In this case, in this scenario, I'd say that yes, to answer your question, you probably could be able to burnish it really well. And yes, it does become malleable quite well, but again, these are oiled leathers, so if you're going to be doing a hardened leather or a casing, or if you're going to be molding the leather, then you may find it's not as responsive as you'd want because of the amount of oils that are inside the leather. But overall, it does become very, very supple and malleable for a leather of this age and thickness. Because yeah, don't forget, it's quite thick leather. And yeah, this is cleaning this up quite nicely. I've still got quite a lot of alcohol in here, so I'm just going to finish up this. This front section has actually been used a fair amount because it's cracking. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, it's cracking a bit, so I just do want to be careful with this one. I don't add in too much alcohol because I don't want to dry it out too much. Leave it at that. Don't want to touch it more. The idea here being just to clean up the surface as much as possible. Doesn't have to be perfect. It really doesn't have to be perfect at this point. You just want to get it as close as possible to clean. The whole idea here, above and beyond just cleaning it, the whole idea here is to make sure that there's nothing on the surface that would stop the oils from penetrating later on in the leather, because the next step is going to be adding oils, okay, as well as the Saphir Renovateur. The next step is that. So yeah, of course you're cleaning it at this point with the alcohol, but that's not the main purpose, I don't think, for me at least. The main purpose here is to make sure that there is no residues on the top of the piece of leather that will stop the oils from getting through. And that's been especially true on some older leathers. I've had one piece which was coated with this type of military wax, and in that case the oils just refused to go in, because the whole point of that coating was to make the leather completely impervious, and it really did. But in general, you know, after years and years of use, you don't know what's been accumulated on top of this. So by doing this, you're just making sure you're removing any top layer of grime that may still be on here, and you're just making sure you're giving yourself as much as possible a blank canvas upon which to work in the next few steps. That's really, I think, the goal of this step right now. But I'll be glad to be finished with this step because I don't like the smell of the alcohol. And I also know that alcohol can be very, very bad for leather. So I really don't want to spend too long doing this if I can avoid it. I'm just making sure it's clean. There we go. And this also enables me to see if there are any leftover bits of thread, which there are sometimes. What's that? And that, I don't know if you can see, there is a notch. No, other side, sorry. There's a notch there. That is me cutting into the leather when I was taking it to pieces, taking it apart. So not good to see. Okay, I think we are mostly ready to go. Just want to clean out inside all the little holes. Make sure there's no saddle soap left over. I'm using just a simple horsehair bristle brush. Small strokes because you want to get those bristles inside the holes. And this cleans out the inside of those holes beautifully. Yeah. It's always looking really good. Really looking forward to see how this one turns out. See, that's the difference. These are the holes with all the saddle soap still in it. I'm just going to show you quickly. Just on one side. And that's with all the saddle soap taken out on this side. You can see the saddle soap in that one. It's all gone on this one. And you see how much clearer the sign is on this. That's because you've gone ahead and cleaned out the inside of those little markings. which has increased the contrast. And one thing that I've always found quite interesting is that every single saddler had his own stamp, and not just his own stamp, but every year he had a new stamp with the new year, and every time he changed place, I'm guessing, or base, or military camp, or town, I'm guessing he also changed his stamp, which means that somewhere there must be a whole bunch of these stamps for a whole bunch of different people, for a whole bunch of different years, for a whole bunch of different places. It's mesmerizing when you think about how much getting one stamp costs nowadays. To think that these guys, these master saddlers, had their own stamps made whenever they changed places and every year. It's just insane. Yeah, it's looking good. Looking good and feeling good. I can close up this bottle of alcohol, by the way. I don't need that to be evaporating all over the place. There we go. And you can really see the 35F, which, please focus, please focus, please focus. Well, you can really see the 35F, which I believe is at one point this must have been sold at a brocante or some kind of yard sale thing. And I think someone wrote by hand 35F as in 35 francs. Now, I doubt it's the French francs, simply because 35 French francs would have been pretty much nothing. It really is. It's like not even a dollar, maybe less than a dollar. My guess is it's 35 Swiss francs, which would have been closer to $35, if not $40, depending on where you are. Or if you're in Canada, maybe like $50, because Canadian dollars aren't really worth that much compared to Swiss francs. But yeah, so my guess is it's Swiss francs, which adds a bit more to the story of this, which I really like. Anything that adds to the story of a piece I love. That's why I love these pieces so much, because they've got the stamp of the maker, they've got the year, and they've even got the place where it was made. And that, I think, is absolutely priceless. Again, I'm using a simple horsehair, relatively coarse brush to get rid of all the excess. First of all, to get rid of all the stuff that may be lying around on the surface again, but mostly to get rid of the extra saddle soap that would be inside. Now, we've done that, we can use neatsfoot oil. So this is Fibing's pure 100% neatsfoot oil, and the idea here is to bring back some of the oils back into the leather where it needs it most. For this, we're going to get a clean sheet of this rather pretty towel. A napkin, I should say. It's a napkin. Pretty sure it's a napkin. There we go. Keep that for later. Guys, again, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments for me. We're in a chat. Be delighted to be able to read you and answer you as we go along. As a reminder, these are 1960s Swiss ammunition pouches, and I am in the process of taking them apart, cleaning them, and putting them back together with a nicer thread. Now, I go ahead and put a good coat of the neatsfoot oil, not too much, I just want one quick coat. It doesn't need to be much. The important part is to let it sit and let the neatsfoot oil take hold, really. The neatsfoot oil is amazing oil that basically there are different stories around neatsfoot oil. I've tried to figure out where it comes from. In French, it's called huile de pied de bœuf, which is the direct translation of the oil from the foot of the cow or the beef or the bull. And that gives you a better indication of where it comes from. So out of curiosity, I looked it up and I couldn't really understand what it was made of. There were two stories that I found, two versions that I found. The first one is that it's simply that they took the hooves of the cow and boiled them to extract the oils from the hooves. And those oils are what you use because they're full of keratin and they're full of good things that are really great for conditioning and keeping leather alive as long as possible, because that's basically what you're doing here. You're trying to keep your leather product alive as long as possible. That's the first version, so boiled from the feet or the hooves of cows. The second version is that it's the oils that are present in the cow's legs. Because the legs are often exposed to very low temperatures, that oil is especially good at keeping the legs warm, and therefore saturated in all the very rich oils that the leather would need to stay alive. So different versions out there. I don't know which one I prefer, to be honest. If you guys know where neat oil comes from, I'd love to hear, because to be honest, I haven't really found one answer that seems to be, you know, like definition, a pure, explicit definition of where neat oil comes from. I like to get a lot on the back and the front, simply because these are often quite thick pieces and they have seen a lot of wear and tear, and often these are the pieces that are the most exposed. So yeah, I like to get lots of it on the back and the front. Make sure you hit the inside as well. Again, these are very thick pieces, so don't be afraid of hitting the inside, because you really want that oil to permeate the leather. Again, not too much. The whole idea is not to saturate the leather with oil, just to bring some of that oil back into the leather to make sure that the leather stays supple. So there's no point putting too much, and you really don't want to put too much, because that just makes your leather potentially rancid and rot. I've had it happen to me once, although I don't know if it was the neat oil or something else that did that. But yeah, you do want a good amount, but not too much. Again, wherever there is a fold, you can add in a bit more. So along these edges here, it's important to add some. Guys, I'm going to have to get going in about 10 minutes. So if you have any questions or any thoughts or any comments you'd like to share, feel free to share them to me now in the messages, because yeah, I'm going to have to get moving. Unfortunately, I'd love to be able to stay here and chat until the whole project is finished, but I won't have the time or the possibility to do so. So yeah, feel free to tell me what you think and what you'd like to see in my future videos, my future builds. If you have any comments about what you're seeing right now, let me know. Shin bones. Ah, you know what, Barry? That's yeah, makes sense. And I don't know why I'd never thought to look at Wikipedia. Yeah, sometimes you forget how useful Wikipedia can be. Shin bones. That's interesting. And does it explain, Barry, the process of how it's obtained from the bones? Like, are the bones? Is it an oil that's naturally present in the bones? I'm gonna have to research that and give you guys a proper review or recount of what I find. But yeah, shin bones would make sense. But of the cow specifically, I'm guessing we're talking here. I don't know. There we go. All our pieces are oiled. The next thing to do, I'm just going to give this one a quick rub again, just to make sure. Talks about being liquid at room temperature. Yep. It is liquid at room temperature, that I can attest for. In that case, it probably is oil that is just naturally present in the cow's leg, I suppose. And you just grab it when you kill the cow. It's not a very nice thought, but that's just life, really. Yeah, we have to remember we are talking about leather, which is a natural living product, or that used to be. So, shins have very little fat covering the oil which might be inside the body would be liquid at body temp. Yeah, makes sense, and that does correlate with the more theoretically accurate version of the story that I'd heard, which was it came from the cow's legs. So yeah, that would be it. Thank you very much, Barry, for your help. I don't know why I didn't think about looking on Wikipedia. So guys, I think this is going to be it for today. This piece now just has to rest, just has to sit, let the oils penetrate, and the next step for me is going to be using Saphir Renovateur, which is basically a cream that you dab on, which is really, really good at rejuvenating, I think you say that, rejuvenating leather, and this smells amazing. I could just use it all day long. It smells amazing and your fingers feel great afterwards. Although again, I would recommend using gloves for that, but you do want to apply it with your fingers, whether or not you use gloves, simply because the heat of your skin helps apply or penetrate helps the oils and the goodness of this penetrate into the leather, theoretically. Or at least that's what I've been told. I know that a lot of shoemakers and cobblers on YouTube would use their fingers for that specific reason. But again, as most products, if you're doing this every day, you may want to use gloves, although if you're using proper latex or whatever kind of gloves, you should still be able to get the benefits of the heat of your skin going into it. And for those of you who have followed until now, I do have this gorgeous one, this gorgeous pouch that I need to redo sometime soon, and this is going to be this is going to be quite something. I might make a video just on that. It's not even the oldest one I have, it's actually got mold. If I can get this, it's got mold down behind there. It's not even the oldest one I have here. It's certainly the most disgusting looking one. Oh, that is amazing. That has been lying out somewhere dirty for God knows how long. And you know what, guys? I think we could actually get it back. It looks to me as if it could be one of those very interesting cases. This one was made by someone called Allensprache or Allensbach in Flaville. And this was made in 1965. This is not the oldest I have. The oldest I have so far is this one made in 1962, which is in so much better condition. That's you know, this is the beauty of leather, really. If you take care of it, even slightly, this is what you get. If you don't take care of it, this is what you get. And this one is 5 years younger than this one. It's just insane. Anyhow, guys, thanks a ton for tuning in. It's been really fun to be able to do this with you. I know it's not been necessarily the most enjoyable thing to watch, but yeah, hopefully you've learned a few things, and feel free to send me a message and let me know what you thought of this live. I hope to see you very soon for some more leathercraft. Thanks again, guys. Take care and have a good one.